Now here's the trick. You need to cause hyperplasia now, right? Because you've reached the maximum potential of your hypertrophy. For instance, imagine that you have reached your maximum potential, but then again, you gotta understand that to reach your maximum potential, you're gonna be a very dedicated person to that. It's perhaps you're gonna be like a Ronnie Coleman, like any other more or less dedicated bodybuilder. Okay, so it's not just doing the workouts once in a while, in the gym, some Pilates and all that. No, it doesn't work. It's like really a heavy, progressive muscle overload, resistance training, with, of course, with the sublethal damage, in a way. You don't do it all the time, sometimes you just do the metabolite training, so you create enough metabolites that cause the inflammation and then the sort of tissue repair, right? And then, or you can cause some sublethal damage to the myofibril, okay? And then the body will be repairing that. Now, here's a trick, how you can actually biohack it and how people are doing that. You need to cause hyperplasia. It means that you need to add on amount of cells into that tissue, right? That is possible for the muscle tissue because there is one of the mechanisms of the repair of the muscle tissue, which is so-called satellite cells.
Okay.
Satellite cells is a type of the stem cells. Okay, it's one of the types of the MSC. Okay, mesenchymal stem cells, and they are specifically called satellite cells, and they're quite small in size. Okay, they're definitely not big, right? And they're something like patches. That little patch will patch this little cell, will patch the damage in the myofibril. Okay? Now, fine, you have reached the repair, but still you don't get much of a volume, right?
Correct.
Because it's a very small cell.
Take a touch up.
Yeah. So you need to find a way how to make it grow.
Okay, and what would that be?
Well, first of all, you need to attract those cells, and you need to make sure that the damage is done to the muscle, and the repair of the muscle, the myofibril, is done predominantly or with a large amount of satellite cells participating in that process of repair. So you need to attract them there.
Like a magnet, you need to pull them, like a homing.
So for that, you can use the human growth hormone. That's one of the functions of the human growth hormone. Apart from, of course, it promotes the protein synthesis and so on and so forth. But one of the mechanisms also is it promotes that the satellite cell sort of participation in that repair.
Can I say that the human growth hormone is usually confused with steroids, or is it the one and the same thing?
No, when you refer to steroids, or people talk about steroids, they talk about testosterone or the derivatives of testosterone. Growth hormone is an anabolic hormone, but if you mean like the steroid, it's not the same.
Not the same.
No, it's not the same.
But the outcome of it, would it be the same?
No, it doesn't produce that much of a hypertrophy. Okay. What it does, it does promote tissue growth, but mostly it promotes hyperplasia. Now, here's this thing, because the GH is it's like a coin with two sides, because GH is converted into another molecule, which is called IGF, insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1. And that happens in the liver, and by and large, the anabolic effect of the GH is sort of realized or demonstrated through the IGF-1. Okay. But there are certain differences that are in principle between the GH and IGF-1. It's something about the insulin and insulin receptors, it's out of the topic.
Okay.
So it's not all of it, not the entire GH would convert into the IGF.
Only a part of it. Because, like, for example, I think the Olympics committee, right, has banned any form of usage of growth factors. I believe.
Oh, that's without doubt, absolutely.
Yeah, because they would equate it as, you are essentially gaining an additional advantage over, others who don't use that in the sport, right?
Of course.
So, but then at the same time, again, how can it be used in a positive way then? Because, people have a negative perception towards growth hormones, growth factors because of, the Olympics team. Yeah.
Now here is very. It's very extremely simple. You have science and rationale on one side, and you have emotions on the other side. If you're talking about negative perception, sometimes just say it's a purely emotional judgment of somebody, and it's got nothing to do with the reality of the actual chemical molecule and its pharmacodynamics, pharmacokinetics, and the biological properties that it has. And it's absolutely, it's got no concerns. I mean, the nature and human physiology has got no concerns regarding the World Anti-Doping Agency. It's the other way around. Okay, so we were talking only about benefits, right? I don't see any negative aspect, using that. In the long term, you can debate whether the growth hormone is good for longevity or not. Okay, but then again, there's not much data available if we want to talk about the high level of evidence. And so you need to do some kind of really deep studies, deep analysis on that. The studies that are done are so far showing that we're not talking about the therapy, but if, say, predominantly people have a lesser amount of growth hormone, somatotropic hormone produced in their body, so they will live longer, and those who are bigger, like the extremes of that, the individuals with dwarfism, they would have pituitary dwarfism. They would have a normal lifespan. But individuals with opposite of that,
the really tall ones, right? They have
those who have either pituitary adenoma, or they have overproduction. It's gigantism. The pituitary gigantism. Totally opposite condition to that. They usually have a shorter lifespan. And the problem comes mostly through the organ hypertrophy, because it will also cause the hypertrophy of other organs.
Like it strains the heart more than usual.
The heart is going to be huge, the liver is going to be definitely bigger, everything's going to be bigger. I mean, the facial features are changing, the nose is getting... Yeah, absolutely, yeah. At least those who are on there, even in bodybuilding through the generations, from 70s, 80s, and you see the 90s generation, so on and so forth. I mean, allegedly, what people say everywhere on the YouTube and stuff like that, that this is the growth hormone sort of era or the generation of the growth hormones, because the muscles start growing in those parts where they were not growing in the bodybuilders in previous generations. So it's a bigger lens. Stuff like that,
Okay.
But it's all arguable.
Okay, the reason
there are indications, but it's all arguable. Yeah. So coming back to the biohacking of the muscle.
Correct.
So here's a trick. Now you need to know for how long that process of that growth hormone muscle repair with the satellite cells, not to say last. What's the minimum of that? You need to understand at least what is the minimum duration of time that you need to perform that sort of damage and that sort of mode of repair.
And that specific protocol, right? For it.
Yeah, of course, this is science, absolutely this is science. And then once you assume that you have achieved that amount of satellite cells, then you need to promote their hypertrophy. And that is when you will need some kind of anabolic agents to help to promote it. So the IGF-1 being the most potent sort of part or form or derivative of GH, when that is included in the biohacking protocol, whatever you call it, then it will cause the hypertrophy, and of course other agents, other compounds, that will stimulate the hypertrophy of those cells. Then you can essentially, in reality, you can beat your genetic potential.
The reason why I ask is because I would use my personal example. So for me, back about 10 years ago, so when I was, I'm 38 this year, so when I was 28, I was inspired by a lot of my peers who were getting into gym, and I think that's where in KL actually the gym started to boom, because we first had fitness first, and then we had celebrity fitness, and then all of them started to mushroom overnight, right? And so I signed up with fitness first because that was the first one that came, and then of course the good branding and all that. So they lock you in for contracts. So I was there for I think I signed like a 2-year with them upfront, and then they link it with a personal trainer. All right, and then the personal trainer back then was charging me about 100 plus ringgit per session, per hour. And so I was thinking, okay, now I have a trainer, I have a gym, it's a branded gym, it looks good, it's in KLCC, so I'm going to work out, in the Twin Towers. So I thought I would be very inspired, right? Yeah, and so first thing my trainer tells me is, okay, what do you want to work out? What do you want to work on? And I said, okay, I want to build my chest, I want to build my arms, I want to get rid of my tummy fat. So he says, okay. So you need to
basically everything.
Everything, right? It's like a whole makeover. So he tells me, okay, you need to buy this. So I bought whey protein, I bought liquid creatine, and a few other really random stuff which I didn't know anything about, right? Because he gave me a shopping list. So I went to GNC, I bought all this stuff. It cost me a couple of hundred back then, which 10 years ago is still a lot of money even now, And I was thinking, okay, with this whole setup, I'm now going to get that dream chest, that dream arms, which I've always seen, in movies, and now I'm going to get it. And he told me that I would if I stick to the plan, in the next 3 months. He says you can see it as fast as 3 months, or some people 6 months, And I was thinking, okay, I can live with that kind of number, right? So I religiously was taking this, and oh my God, protein. I think you probably take it a lot. Whey protein, it's horrible, even with the flavoring. It's so
well. It perhaps depends on the brand. Some are. The texture of the product is not that great.
It's clumpy. It was so clumpy, and I had a regurgitation when I took the liquid creatine. Creatine. So you're supposed to take that, I think, after your workout or something. So I was a bit confused, like, is it before or after? And then he's like, oh, you can take it before and after. And I was like, okay, So what I got was, I got an acid reflux where I would consume the drink and then it would come up. Like I would taste it in my mouth. It's horrible, And so I was thinking, this isn't working for me. So what I did was I completely stopped everything because, I felt like, after about a month and a half, I wasn't, seeing that, because he told me in 3 months to get all this, right? So after, logically speaking, 1.5 months, and I'm doing it religiously, I should be seeing some result. Yeah, I did feel a bit more strength and all of that, but it wasn't close to what I was, and the food intake, and because there were a lot of things I couldn't eat, and then I'd take a lot of chicken breast, and a lot of stuff.
Chicken breast and broccoli.
Yeah.
No way, yeah.
It was horrible because I love my local Malaysian food, right? I miss my nasi lemak, I miss my char kway teow.
Local Malaysian chicken breast and Malaysian broccoli is just great.
Really? Okay, so I could do that.
I love Malaysian broccoli.
Yeah? So I was on tasteless food, and then I was eating clumpy powder, and then I was having a regurgitation of creatine. So it was a very unpleasant workout experience.
All right, you can just, if you don't go really far, you can just go on my Instagram page and see the example of the food that I eat. And I think it's pretty colorful and pretty amazing.
Okay.
So, and it's very easy to cook. At least half of it I do myself. Okay. And in the day, the breakfast and the first and the last meals, the first one and the last two I do myself. And then the rest is my family members, help. They pre-cook, so then I will just, now I got the weighing scales.
Oh, so you weigh the exact portions that you need.
Yeah, because it's either you do that intuitively. I don't mind doing it intuitive because I feel my body really great, I can estimate. Frankly speaking, I over the years, just by looking at it, I can already tell, how many calories or am I gonna be. At least it's not about. I won't tell how many calories, but I'm absolutely quite with a high accuracy. Okay, able to estimate and put myself either in a caloric surplus or just meet my daily caloric requirement, or I can put myself in a caloric deficit. Okay.
Depending on what you want. Right?
Yeah. Yes. But thing is, that is still intuitive.
Okay.
Okay.
How is it so? Like, how does it work? Like, for those people who don't know how to do it.
Yeah, you can make no matter how intuitively gifted and no matter how experienced you are, you still make mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, and then knowingly and unknowingly, you know, and sometimes the brain may just misguide you, you know, and things like that, you know, and sometimes when you look at yourself in the mirror, you reassess yourself and you do it with a different mood, or sometimes you are more hydrated, less hydrated, you know, so your perception changes, you know, and people sort of start swinging more, less intake, more intake, less intake, and that's not the optimal way, put it this way. A smart person would not do that.
Yeah.
You know, if it's the same like if you have a vehicle, right, and you're not really in love with your car, right, but you just put the right amount of oil in the engine, right. You don't overflow it, and you don't drive with a half empty that oil
on spare tank.
Yeah. You know, whatever. So it's not about the gasoline, you know, it's about the oil, you know, the black oil in the engine.
Right?
Correct. Yeah, so you just put the right amount. Okay, so the same perhaps would be a better idea to do with nutrition, especially if you have specific goals or you have a specific date, you know, that you want to achieve this and that until the specific date.
And you just wait on the 31st of July.
Right. So, and then you know, okay, my body weight is so and so, and then I want to get that body weight so and so. But frankly speaking, that means nothing. Absolutely. Because when people tell me like, oh, I'm this body weight, you know, I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't mean anything. You know, my BMI, I'm obese by whatever, 27, 28, you know, although my body weight is about, I don't know, 6-7%.
Oh my,
yeah.
Okay, now I feel fat.
Which still, I have a target to reduce a bit.
But okay, how low should it go? Like, because you cannot be zero body fat.
Well,
right?
yeah, of course, well, perhaps maybe you can be zero body fat, but not really much close to that. Yeah, and definitely you can shred as much as possible. But I know what I'm into because I've assessed and I'm constantly doing that. I'm doing the body composition test
regularly, so you can track.
Yes, regularly, and now it came to that point that. On the very last body composition test, I was already looking not at the percentage of the fat, but I was looking at the specific kilograms, you know, how many kilograms of fat. And I looked at then again, of course the machine, you know, this the microcurrent electrical machine, will not give you 100% accuracy, but it will give you a trend. So if you are doing with the same machine consistently over a span of time, even if the parameter is say 2% off or 3% off, it's still fine, you know, because you can adjust that, but you see the trend.
And you see yourself either, you know, something decreasing or something increasing,
right?
Yeah.
And you look at the body weight, then you look at the fat-free mass. I look at the amount of water that I have, and I look at the amount of lean muscle mass, and I was looking at the percentage of fat. So now I came to the point when at the last test I don't look at the percentage of fat. I look at the absolute figure, how many kilograms, and I look at the distribution of trunk,
where it is.
And I calculate. Okay, so I have this X amount of kgs at this location, location, this amount of kgs, which is not much actually. My goal is just 4 kilos.
Okay, so one of the things also like during my so-called fitness journey like 10 years ago was trying to find the right, so I had two things I wanted to do. So when I was younger, I was really skinny, so I was usually taking a lot of weight gainers. So I think the one that is most available in pharmacies are like Epitone, you know, that's very common. So I was on that for a while, but I didn't really sort of gain weight per se, so I wasn't sure was it because the product wasn't working or my metabolic rate was too high.
The actual weight gain is the whey protein powder. That's what they call weight gainers.
Yeah. So if it's not whey, then it's probably not going to help me gain much.
Well, if you want to gain weight and lean muscle mass, you have to consume protein, right? So that's hence the product.
Yeah. So I was on that, and then I realized that I did gain some, but it wasn't to the point where I wanted it, because I was really skinny. Like people were like, "Oh my gosh, you're like from some starving, third world country." So I thought that would help. And then after that, I realized that when I sort of went over a certain age, my goal became more towards reverse, which is weight loss. Because when you cross a certain age, when you go especially past 30, I realized when I went past 30, my ability to shed weight wasn't as easily as before. And of course, because the metabolic rate has obviously dropped and all of that. And
no, it's because your testosterone.
That's
the number one reason.
Okay. Yeah. And so. And that's a good thing, because people don't usually think about testosterone as being a reason for the inability to lose weight, right? They always think it's something like, oh, I'm not working out enough, my stamina is low. So they probably look into...
Their stamina is low because the testosterone production is low.
Correct. And so in this case, so moving from weight gainers, I went to, products which will help you with weight loss, and then usually they come in the form of meal replacements. And then this was again, it's probably about 5 years ago. So again, there are many brands out there in the market, which I think a lot of people would be accustomed to, which is, you sort of take it and then, it replaces your breakfast or your lunch, and then you just end up having one real meal, which is something that you want, but in small doses, and it did work for me at some point. Yeah, but okay, this is what I noticed. Like I lost, let's say, for example, 2 kilos. Within less than a month or even 2 weeks, I gained 4. So it became more of a I lose 2, gain 4, lose 4, gain 8. It's like a never-ending.
Everything should be a fun. I believe that it should be fun. And whether you want to gain weight, you want to lose weight, you want to do it with fun. And then with that auto motivation by default, self-generating motivation from the process of doing it itself. So the formula which I found for myself successful is in the very end, after trying a lot of stuff, is just to list down honestly, because you're talking to yourself, from breakfast, from the very first meal to the very last meal on the day, list down everything that I eat and make that perfect list that, all right, like, I would have been happy with this list. I definitely will not hate myself for like, oh, what have you done? You've eaten some junk or this and that, or seen a tremendous amount of unhealthy food, so it's like all the healthy stuff, but there's a variety, and I know that I'm gonna enjoy, and I even put options, so on this day you can do this, on that day you can do that, on that day you can do this, anything else, It's not really like a cookbook, but I start thinking of the cookbook already. So I don't have time for that, with all the other things going on, but it's like it's ongoing, and then collecting the data, put it this way. So I've listed down all items, and then by knowing my target, what is the requirement of my caloric intake, and what is my target in terms of the weight management. I've calculated the amount of the calories that I need to take. So there's a difference between the amount that I need and the amount that I take. And after that, of course, you need to break it down into the amount of meals. And every meal, because you can eat the X amount of calories and the X amount of protein. Eating only protein or some 1 or 2 meals with a huge amount of protein, it just doesn't make any sense, because your ability of the body to sort of accept and digest and process and incorporate in your metabolism of the protein and all is limited. So you don't want to do unnecessary stuff, isn't it?
Correct. And use up the quota.
Right, yeah, so and then of course I break down the fats and all, so I have the idea already, right? So literally I have the ingredient and I have the amount, but the amount is calculated in calories, so then just use the table and convert that into the grams.
It's like a science, right? Again, most people think it's like...
It's mathematics I don't know, primary school.
Lovely. So anyone can do it.
Anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. And after that, you just have to be stopped being childish and become an adult. Yeah, you know, we have the phases that Jean Piaget has described. You know, in the fourth phase, 12 years and above, is when the average or so-called normal Homo sapiens should become able to have a critical thinking.
Correct.
You know, so you do this multiple tests on that, you know, even with the candy and all this stuff. But that, of course, for the smaller kids, you know, the 5-6 years old. But 12 years, yeah, you can make some rational judgment and so on and so forth. So if you have reached that age, you can make a rational decision and honest decision to yourself that, you know, I'm not going to cheat or lie to myself.
Yeah. Correct.
Right. But, well, this all, of course, is ideally speaking.
Correct, because a lot of people, that's why they have cheat days, right?
Because, no, it's not about the cheat days, because in reality it doesn't work.
Yeah?
It doesn't work in reality. And I gotta tell you what happened with you and your first gym was absolutely a great thing.
Okay.
Because what they've done to you was right. That was correct.
Which is?
Which is the number one, sorry for saying that, but number one stupid thing to do.
Okay.
Is, and absolutely not, why stupid? Let me explain why stupid. Because it is useless, it's inefficient, and in the same time being inefficient, it's not effective.
You're talking about the system that I was given, or the one I didn't follow?
If you do otherwise.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So if you do this stupid thing, it's because it's ineffective, inefficient, and it's practically useless. No outcome. It's a waste time.
Yeah.
And that's the number one mistake that people do, is training or doing anything to your health or your body without a coach, a healthcare expert, or any form of advisor, therapist.
I had a trainer.
Only with the trainer. That was absolutely right. So it has to be only with the trainer.
Yeah, but he was so strict that I felt, you know, like, wait a minute, why am I paying money to get tortured? You know, why am I paying money to have someone tell me one more round, 2 more reps, and then I'll be like, why didn't you do it? You know? And then it was, I remember we had these fights in the gym.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, because I wasn't used to taking instructions, number one. Number two, you know, and because your body is only telling you you're tired, you know, stop this, and yet
that's why you need the coach.
Exactly.
You're not supposed to listen to your body.
Exactly,
You're
and that's why I
need to listen to coach.
But it was fine because during that moment when I sort of, you know, get upset with him, after that he'll be like, do you feel better now? You know, like that's probably your hormones talking.
Of course, yeah. Well, you have all the endorphins, you know, you feel great after workout.
Yeah. So, but the point was that, actually, now when I think about it on hindsight, I think it's also about, like you mentioned, the whether or not you're mature, if that's the word for it, to really want to undertake this project. Because fitness, I realize, you know, it's a lifestyle. Right? When I see my friends who are like, you know, active joggers, triathletes, you know, those who take part in every marathon, it is a way of life for them. Like they plan the whole year. You know, some of them like, okay, you know, I want to run here and there. You know, before pre-COVID days, of course. You know, I want to fly at this part, you know, and that part, and I'm taking part in this race and that Spartan and this Viper, and you know, and it's such a lifestyle. And I look at them and I'm like, when I hang out, no, I don't. I've got this, you know, competition. I'm doing this Borneo run or something, you know, cross country, and I'm like, phew, you know, and they're happy. You know, I see them on Instagram, and you know, and they talk about their transformation, and most of them do it because there is a clear motivation. Like for example, usually it's due to a wake-up call. Like for example, you know, they do a test and then they realize that they are either obese or, you know, pre-diabetic, or maybe, you know, that there are possibilities of high cancer markers. So all of these things suddenly make them wake up and realize, I need to take my health and my fitness and my wellness more seriously. You know, usually it comes because of some kind of a situation. Because naturally, you know, people would go, I'm still young, right? I can eat what I want.
Scenarios, yeah, one of the
Yeah, most of them are like, I'm still young, my metabolic rate is high, I can eat whatever rubbish I want, I can take junk food, I can sleep, I just need 2 hours of sleep, I can party, I can pump my body with all sorts of stuff, and still be fine. Like, I can have drink after drink and my liver is still going to be able to handle it. It's only after they cross a certain threshold where they realize, oh, I probably can't smoke this much, I can't drink this much, I can't party this much, I need really proper sleep, and I need to have my 8 glasses of water a day. Like, it hits you at a certain point in your life, I'm guessing, and I don't know, it could be my personal experience.
Because the ability of your body to adapt and the compensation, the reserve to compensate all the damage is not there anymore, So of course you're gonna feel aging and you deteriorate and all. I think this is pretty much a standard story. So many people are going through that in a different extent. It's not necessarily that you really have to torture your body with alcohol, and substances and all. But overall, just the food and the stress and work, that's pretty much enough. And the same happened to me. I always love sports, in some what people call the extreme sports, rather the martial arts or the bodybuilding, scuba diving, that kind of activities.
Bungee jumping.
No, I haven't tried that one. It's something that is stopping me from the height. I love the depth and I love scuba diving because I have the control. You have the buoyancy regulator, and then you are in a thicker environment which is trying to push you out. But when you are dropping, when your body is dropping or falling down from somewhere, some object, a man-made object, or bridge or helicopter, with or without rope, with or without parachute or the flying device, whatever. Still, I don't know, although statistically perhaps it's quite safe, right? And the people die even during the scuba diving.
Yeah. Lack of oxygen.
Plenty, and then doing all the mistakes and whatever happened, and the Caisson disease, and then when you go beyond certain depth, you have that the nitrate, the CO2,
the poisoning,
that poisoning, so you have that kind of again deranged perception, and then you might have a deranged perception about the depth, although you have the gauge and all that stuff, right? So different things happen, of course, incidents, whatever. But you still sort of, when you plunge into the water, you feel that, okay, I got it,
You're
I got it.
Control.
Yeah, I'm still under control, okay? I'm in a foreign, not to say malignant, but not really a welcoming environment. Okay, this is a foreign environment for me, right? I'm not supposed to be here, I'm not a whale and all, but I still can manage it, right? I have these gadgets and all, and I'm sort of in control, I want to go up, down, I want to go up. When you're dropping, you're only going down.
It's just one way, right?
Yeah, it's just one way, you don't have an option, so I don't really like it.
I think the difference would be why people go for this, skydiving and free falling is because they want to lose control. They probably have been, in positions of control all their life, and now it's finally a chance where, I just don't want anything. I just want to free fall and see where it brings me. It's like the ultimate release for them.
But I believe it feels great. I believe it feels great.
Yeah.
I would love to do that. Just it's not on the priority list.
Yeah, I mean, probably.
It's coming back to the story, and even just living a normal life, like with the work and the study and all that stuff. You definitely gonna age, and no matter how active you are. I remember there was one particular moment when that was a bit less than 10 years ago. Okay, and I'm working, the family, and the night shifts, the calls, the normal daily doctor's life in the surgical department in the hospital, Absolutely same as, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of other people. And I'm still trying. I'm regular. I will sign up for the gym literally all my life. Okay, so I'm still going to gym regularly. I do some walks and this and that, and then I'm trying to be an active person. Okay, and then there was a time when I was preparing for a martial art competition. Okay, and I decided it was one of the competitions that I to party, and I started preparing for that. And the very first thing that I started working on was, of course, the speed, and all that things. And also you start running. So I started jogging in the morning and in the evening, and it was really hard, really, really hard, because I felt that the burden on the joints and the calves and the ankles and all, and I thought, okay, perhaps a couple of days gonna be better. It's not getting better after a couple of days, 5 days, 7 days, not getting better. Couple of weeks, not getting better. And it really was very, very tough that year, and then a lot of work, and I managed to improve only for the competition for the next year.
So it took about a year plus to prep.
Well, I did participate in all of them, but the best that I could get was bronze, So, but then when I really committed to that in 2013, I got 1 gold, so I'm so happy with that. Yeah, it was in a heavyweight committee, and but that took me significantly longer time than it was taking me in the past.
Because again, the body has aged.
Yeah, because my body has aged, because my body became heavier, And another thing that the fat deposition when you become fat, and it's coming in a very subtle way, and especially if you're very active, And then I was like doing gym 4 days a week.
So your brain tells you, I shouldn't be getting fat because I'm doing everything right.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm eating
No,
well.
I was getting bigger. I was quite strong enough, and I was lifting heavy,
So you're going down the the strongman route versus the athletic route.
Yeah. And I was getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Even when my body weight reached 127 kilo, I was pressing 105 kilo bench press, And
could almost lift yourself.
Yeah,
105, 127,
I mean, the bench, there was the bench press, And I felt sort of okay, but I wasn't happy with the way how I look and with the performance and all.
Okay.
Then I had to take drastic changes. And another thing is that I definitely was not capable of doing a long training, so it was like a short one.
Like half an hour, 1 hour?
Because my endurance, was easily getting fatigued.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult to recover. It's one of the things, So I've missed that point, that hit me in my late 30s, because I've missed that. I should have done something earlier.
Oh crap! So I still have hope. I'm in my late 30s, and which is what I was, just sharing with some friends over lunch earlier. Who's also very big on fitness and all. So some of them started their journey young, like 13 years old, already started getting into sports and gym, and then another good friend of mine, Michael, started only doing it in his late 20s. So he was saying, did I miss it? And I was like, well, you did it in your 20s, now in my late 30s. So and then he says, well, there's still time. There's always time. Yeah, if you want to do it, but it's literally, like you said, it's about that self-discipline, and I would think that I'm okay with dieting, like I'm okay with removing certain things from my diet, but what I think would be most challenging for me is committing to that routine of doing the reps and
it's very simple. It's 3 things that you need to take care of. It's your personal commitment. Deal with that. And there are ways to enhance that, by the way, multiple ways. There's genetics, which is you get what you get, and perhaps the first and the second component define the third component in a way, which is the enhancement. Okay. You need to get the enhancement. And depending on your commitment and depending on your genetic potential, your enhancement protocol might have its own peculiarities, put it this way.
So I have to customize it?
Well, you can't customize it. It's a person who is working with you.
Okay.
Should customize it.
Yes.
Yeah. The same goes to me. I have people who are working with me. One of them is me, myself. Which is, it's a very big thing, by the way, because I don't think that all people can become your own coach.
No, not at all.
And I was thinking that I sort of like became my own coach for quite some time. And then when that really happened, because again, I stopped coaching myself intuitively. I just started coaching myself by the book. That's it. But of course, I have people who advise me all the time.
Definitely, I think working with a team, like when you look at some of these celebrities or even athletes, right, star athletes, all of them have their own trainer, their chef, their nutritionist.
That's the entire enterprise. That's totally different level.
Correct.
Behind every whatever Instagram personality or something.
And that's why they're so rich.
It's a company.
Correct.
It's people who plan everything for them.
Because they're a brand, right? Their face is that brand. And so I'm thinking, like, for those who don't have the means, to do that, then what would be like the most economic and practical approach to starting off their fitness journey? Like, what would be the first baby step? Like when you before jumping into the pool, you always dip your toes in first to see like how's the water, is the temperature good?
Go and find the person who's gonna do it for you. The location, the premise.
Okay.
And the person who's gonna work with you. That's it. There's no other stuff. It's impossible because all other ways, unless proven otherwise, are going to fail. So no matter what you're gonna watch, no matter what you're gonna read, no matter how you're gonna self-motivate yourself, no matter what you're telling to yourself now, it does not mean that you're gonna stay the same over some period of time. The moment when you will feel the real difficulty and it's all about a little bit of pain and sacrifice and this and that, but you have to find the way how you find pleasure in that and how you really enjoy that. It has to be a purpose. Okay, and then it has to be a purpose, a starting point, the goal, and you need to create a programmatic approach, a program, what I'm gonna do from this point to that point in terms of your gains or losses, and in terms of time.
So if that's the case, like, because usually everyone who has successfully either lost weight or gained muscle or achieved their optimum body condition had what we call as they had some supplements, right? They essentially it's like a staple. Like you must have them because without them, it doesn't get you far. Like for me, I think as a normal consumer, like when I go into a pharmacy, or when I go into a store that sells all these supplements or powders and the works, I get lost. It's like I'm in this huge hypermarket and everybody's telling me I'm good, buy me, I give you good price, second item at 50% off. So I feel as a consumer sometimes it's a bit overwhelming, especially when I step in. And so like would there be like maybe an introductory range you would recommend, like for people who want to start their journey, whether it's for weight loss or for weight gain or for muscle gain? Like what would you recommend?
Well, that's a great question, and And to answer this, first of all, you have to understand that to achieve something, every person, put it this way, let me start this. Every person, every living being is an open biological system.
Okay.
Right? It means that there is an input of information or any data, and there's an output. And in between that open biological system, or semi-open biological system, because it still have the protective layers and all, and it's quite autonomous from the environment and from other beings. So it has specific mechanisms that don't go in there.
Okay.
Right? So when it's coming to the input, and specifically narrow down all the senses that we have and all the ways how we can put the input of anything in our body, we're coming to the oral input. Something that we put inside. What do we need? We need energy. And energy sources, which is a carbohydrate, for instance, one of them, and fats and others. So you have the macronutrients, right? And you have the protein, which are structural molecules and functional molecules. So you have to consume a specific amount of different structural molecules and different functional molecules in order for your all your internal systems function and operate in an optimal way. And every molecule has got a specific value. How much of that molecule your organism, this particular body or this open or semi-open biological system requires in, say, for instance, in a day. Yeah, because we live from one sunset to another sunset, one sunrise to another sunrise, right? We have the circadian rhythm, so it's easy for us to calculate, right? Okay. So every time sort of it's a renewal, reborn, like a phoenix.
Every day.
Right, every day. So you have that daily requirement of something.
Okay.
And depending on what molecule is, you need either more or less of those molecules. Okay. It's very, very simple. Okay? In my opinion, it would be great if somebody, maybe not all the time, but just for the awareness and some kind of a therapeutic, you know, the mind opening therapy, just to imagine and look at it in this way. Yeah? So this is nothing else but chemical molecules that I need to put into my body to make sure that structurally and in terms of the function and operation, my system works in an optimal way.
Understand.
Yeah, if you just remove the emotions for a second.
It's like you don't cake, right? Like I want to make the perfect cake, I need X amount of flour, X amount of sugar, X amount of eggs, and it has to be precise.
Right.
Right?
Right. And recipe.
Recipe, that's the word. Okay.
Now you have the recipe, but you have the biochemical recipe. And you don't talk about the flavors, you don't talk about the dinner with candles, you don't talk about the entree or something or desserts. Appetizers and all that stuff. You know, you don't look at it, you don't think of the fragrance and flavor, it's just the molecules, you know. Because especially for people who have a specific goal in life, whether it's just because they are motivated, they want to look specifically, or it's because of their work or their job, right, or the activity that they're involved, or maybe because of the objective biological reasons. Maybe it's some kind of disease, or maybe it's a genetic metabolic disease that makes you unable to consume or process specific molecules, or specific biochemical reaction is deranged, or it doesn't work in that in the normal way in your body. And also there's multiple reasons for that, right? Or you can have another disease and that limits you in a way, you know, and you have to adjust your intake. So you look at it this way. Okay, so you have the macromolecules and you have the micromolecules. And then, of course, you have calculated your macros, okay, and you're going down, you're zooming down into the micronutrients. And then, the vitamins are coming up, and omega-3 and omega-6, and the lecithin and the collagen, and I have the best fish collagen here, and I have the best mammoth collagen, and my collagen is from dinosaurs, you know, it's mine from lizards, and I have the bear's bile, or I have the snake poison, you know, and stuff like that. You know, so you need to have a bit of a clue what exactly is essential, and if something is really essential, is it how available is that? Okay.
So that it becomes more sustainable, right? Because if it's just very limited, then you can't continue the lifestyle.
Yeah, well, you have some essential molecule, for instance, more or less some kind of vitamin, and then you have to think. I mean, you don't have to think, but since we're discussing that, right?
Okay.
Where can I get it? Is it readily available? Can I get it with food?
Yeah.
Can I get it together with the macros? 2 in 1, right?
Yeah. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Absolutely. So as much as you can gain, but just combining things, you know, already ready-made natural product. They just grow somewhere. You have to just go and harvest it. You don't have to research it, you don't have to formulate it, you don't have to extract it, you don't have to produce it synthetically, right? It's readily available. Just grow it, plant, seed, grow it, or animal, or whatever. Prepare the raw material, cook it, consume. However, not all substances are available in that way.
I was going to ask that.
Right? Not all substances are available in that way. And not all substances you can necessarily eat. And if you eat those substances, not all of them would be useful. Like vitamin D3, for instance. It's a special topic on its own, D3, vitamin D3, of course, in many forms. And it's a misnomer. It's a steroid hormone. Actually, not really as people just think vitamin. And there's one specific form that is produced as a result of the UV light exposure to our body. But thing is, to produce that sufficient amount, it's not that easy because there's a lot of factors that will sort of interrupt that. It's whether where you live, geographical location, and the time of the year and the season, and your work. And most of us were hiding from sun.
Correct.
Right? And darker complexion of skin, you have less ability to absorb, and obesity, less ability to absorb, and all. But even if, say, ideally, how would it look like? Ideally, you would have to strip down to your underwear. And to get a full body exposure, and that cannot be less than 15 minutes. I don't remember already, but it's a time that from like 15 minutes to about an hour, 45 minutes, but it's a full body exposure. Thing is, if you continuously would stimulate your D3 production in that natural way, more than that, you would actually stimulate your skin cancer.
Correct. Because of the direct impact, and of course photoaging and all of that as well.
It's just not practical. So whoever says that you eat just enough, 10-15 minutes under the sun,
just go and sunbathe.
It's absolutely fine for those people who live in the imaginary dream world, or maybe they're so blessed in that particular geographical location that they are not going to get the sunburn and stuff like that, and they can really expose themselves and just walk free. Well, it's not really practical, so making claims like that is just a little bit, I don't know, not really practical, not really mature, because, and then if somebody just doesn't want that, or if somebody has to stay away from the sunlight, or if somebody is already a patient with one of the forms of the skin cancer, and then you live in somewhere in a tropical climate, with under the hole in the ozone layer. And you already have higher chances, even by just living a normal life and applying the sun block and creams and perhaps umbrella, maybe some cap, definitely, right?
Long sleeve.
But some geographical locations have a significantly higher occurrence of skin cancer to others.
Like probably even like Australia, for example.
Australia, yes.
Because there's no, the ozone layer.
They say it's coming back now, right?
It's depleted quite fairly, there's huge gap.
But I think it's coming back, isn't it?
Because they've been doing some efforts, for the environment, so slowly, I think it does grow back.
But overall, our planet is getting greener, actually, in the last few decades. Significantly greener.
I mean, like for example, since the lockdown last year, right, and just looking at the local scenario, a lot of rivers have actually become so clear that you can even have
less human activity, of course, would do a little bit of good, for. I strongly believe in that.
Correct, because I think people are the ones that are really, throwing bottles, throwing plastic bags, and everything that just floats there and it doesn't biodegrade immediately. So the damage to the environment is so bad. And
put it this way, some of the people were, and some are still ignorant and arrogant at the same time, perhaps. And that's the only problem, because I personally think that there's not much of a disaster yet, unless we just stop being ignorant and arrogant. Just be aware of what's happening, just take the basic precautions which are already out there. You know, everyone knows about that. It's same like weight loss or weight gain. You already know what you have to do. Just you have to do it.
Correct.
Well, I understand, of course, that the motivation is always not enough, right? But then again, here comes the topic that we're talking about, which is the enhancement. And depending on what your needs or goals are, the requirement in certain chemical compounds might be also different. Okay. And then, of course, different compounds predominantly have different outcomes, different benefits, different mechanism of action, but of course, importantly, different benefits, right? So, as long as a person is on the right track, I'm specifically not using is in full understanding, okay, because that might not always happen, even when that's why people need coaches and health coaches and doctors, you know, and all that. Any professional who will, the whole team who will put them in the right direction, okay, because it's very difficult to understand everything on your own.
Of course, if that's not your field, you know, like let's say you're an accountant or you're a lawyer, you know, it's not your area, but you know you have those goals, right? And which then leads to my next question, which is like, because you know we're going back to that box, right? That I should have. So, like, is there like a, how do I put it, like a minimum maintenance kind of box that I need, that I can get, you know, the minimum nutrients that I need to function optimally for in terms of brain clarity? Because I realize that as I get older, and I think as most people get older, you have brain fog, you know, you have like this, what was I saying earlier, you know, that memory is not so good anymore, you know, and sometimes even like basic coordination, you find it a bit hard, you know, especially like if you're doing competitive sports, you know, it's like, oh, the thing's coming to your face and you just can't respond, you know, fast enough.
Well, there's so many factors that are involved in that, you know. The aging is so multifactorial that, I mean, you can't even talk about aging as just being a multifactorial, because everything, literally everything is changing in your body. And not only structurally, but the way how it runs. And everything is so much interconnected that you have to sort of all the check and balances, you know, have to be in place in terms of what is your age category, what is your actual status. Because being in one age, in some particular age, it doesn't mean that you will, all your blood readings and all your performance tests and all will be as it should be, you know. However, there's plenty of even performance tests, you know, but it's a topic for a different story, you know. So you gotta understand those things, and of course, in the same time, you gotta take that should be taken into consideration.
That's first, right? Because you need to know what you need.
Where you are, your age, where you should be, where you are, and then where you want to go. Where you want to go. And after that, and here is the first very critical point. And the point is that you cannot do two things. Well, it's conditional, terms and condition apply.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can't do two opposite things in the same time.
Which are?
You cannot gain longevity and overgain certain performance, put it this way.
So you have to choose either one, right? You can't sort of have both.
You cannot lose weight and gain weight
at the same
the same time.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
You cannot anti-age yourself and well, you will enhance yourself in a way, but you cannot put yourself in an anabolic phase, okay? While your goals and your objectives are rather involving the catabolism.
Like you want to extend life, you cannot be revving your engine and then trying to extend life, because it's
Right.
It's like a car also, right? Like, you want to maintain the car for longer use. You drive it, within its range, you take care of it, you maintain it. On the other side, if you want performance and you want to get there really fast, you just rev, and then at some point, the engine's just going to give way.
Well, in my opinion, the most elegant and beautiful, really tasteful, elegant, simple, and extremely accurate is given in the book of David Sinclair.
Okay.
Aging, why we age and why we should not. And in the very first chapter, he has described that partially hypothetical first microorganism, which just consisted of its entire information, just had 2 genes. All right?
Okay.
So one gene is responsible for the proliferation, growth. Another gene is responsible for conservation of energy.
Okay.
Right? And the conservation of the organism. But when the second gene is on, and the second gene is on when the condition of the environment are not optimal. And the condition of the environment are such as, of course, the amount of the nutrients just available in the surrounding, in the environment, because that organism was just a very primitive prokaryotic cell, just a membrane and 2 pieces of DNA or RNA or whatever, not DNA, because it should have the ability to self-reproduce itself without anyone's help. Yeah, so when there's a lot of nutrients, when there's not much of a solar radiation, and the temperature is more optimal, the first gene is on, and that gene will help you to proliferate, create other cells, to grow, to do the repair, and sort of advance. Now, the environment is not so great, the second gene immediately is on, and it has got 2 functions. The function number 1, it shuts down gene number 1.
Because you have to stop growing.
You have to stop growing. You have to stop what gene number 1 is doing. And the function number 2, it switches on the mechanisms which are totally opposite to what gene 1 was doing. So you don't expend much of energy, you more conserve it, right? But you're gonna use up all that molecules and compounds and the metabolites and the byproducts and the secondary products as much as effectively as you can, and you're gonna burn them completely. However, in the same time, you're gonna clear up your carbon. Okay, and that's called autophagy. And now when we talk about a huge number of even the main factor that lies down in the what's gonna happen, what is the potential outcome of the patient with ischemic heart disease who has already developed cardiomyopathy and have already had myocardial infarction, is already stented. What is the actual deciding factor that will decide? He's going down in terms of his health, or he's going to maintain somehow? Is that autophagy? Is the autophagy in the cardiac myocytes?
Which is a suppression of the first
No,
function.
which is the ability to effectively utilize all the metabolites which are stored in the cell, clear up the cell from all the junk proteins and all, and use them up as the energy sources.
So it's about optimization.
Yes, you're sort of optimizing, you're clearing your carbon. That's one of the mechanisms to promote anti-aging. It's just one of the mechanisms to promote anti-aging. There's a number of equally other also, which are very important and all. And then you switch to different types of the metabolism also, right? Same is happening in the macroorganism. So you gotta understand what you want to do. What are you doing now? What's your objective? You have already developed the metabolic syndrome, and you have already plenty of that junk protein stored in your cells, and your performance is not great, and you already have a surplus of your body fat and all, and you have to bring that down, right? So you have to put yourself in a state of the catabolism. You have to reduce your intake, right? But when you reduce your intake, it has to be very calculated, because there are certain essential components which have to be still supplied, and there are certain components, and a lot of them, which have to be in a specific ratio.
Got it.
Like the zinc and the copper, like the omega-6 and omega-3. You know, different types of the fats. And no matter what phase you are, whether you are on a slimming phase and you're in catabolism and you are fasting and so on and so forth, and you may be changing to a ketogenic diet or low carb diet, and you are treating your metabolic syndrome in the same time. And also, perhaps you will deplete certain components in food, certain will be higher, and then the ratios can go off. It means that you will have to adjust the dose of different essential components or compounds, different essential compounds, depending on what you're doing, what program you're on. And if you want to go into and then of course you will promote longevity and so on and so forth. But some people, for different various reasons, and which we're not discussing, which is discussing what is happening, if they're into the performance enhancement, right? Well, it's going to be a totally different story. You see, the thing is that the same compounds might be great for the enhancement of the performance and the longevity, but the value might be different.
Okay.
The requirements might be different. The protocols might be different, and they actually are. That's why I divided into those which are essential for longevity or essential for performance.
So the box actually is different because it depends on what your goal is. If you want performance, this is your box. If you want longevity, this is your box.
Something like that. But that box is open, right? That box is open. However, if you want to insist, we can just zoom it down and just say like, okay, 5.
Yeah,
like
5 works.
5 for longevity. Okay, so let's do that. You know,
yeah, so 5 for longevity, maybe another 5 for performance.
5 for performance, right?
Yeah.
And then the 5 overrated.
Oh yeah.
The 5 hypes. Well, let's not use the word hype, but 5 overrated that perhaps you can get away without. And I'm gonna share you a 5 favorite. One of the ways, or a bit simplistic way, but also it's fun, a little bit fun at the same time. You know, just to group it into not a very strict box, right? It's everything is arguable, everything is open for debate, and everything is absolutely open for criticism, good criticism and discussion.
But at least it's a guide, you know, it's a good guide for people.
It's just my opinion, nothing else. It's just my personal opinion. It's definitely not a medical advice, it's not a recommendation, it's not a consultation, it's just purely, I'm sharing my experience, put it this way, and I would really love to make it in as much of a fun style as it's possible. You know, so let's group it into, say, 5 categories. Okay. And we can talk about 5, which I think would be, not to say best, but at least essential for longevity, and maybe 5 for performance. We're gonna take 5 overrated, not to use the word hype, just which I think in my case, not even overrated, okay? 5 that there are other options to get it, right?
That means you can get it from other sources.
Yeah, you can get it by other means. You can achieve the same goals, or it is available in the other sources. There are alternatives. Right, and we maybe will do some 5 favorites that I just love, you know, some compounds, some products that I find useful in my personal life.
Nice.
And maybe something like 5 that not sure yet, but something is might be a good idea for you to explore and look into.
Got it.
Okay?
Yeah, let's do that.
Cool.
Okay, so what's the first on your list?
All right. Are we gonna talk about the first on the list of specifically
that you
my
like,
favorite?
Your favorite is it's his list. So let's hear, because so it's your list, because I would have mine, but let's hear yours. Let's see if they match.
Okay, immune vid would be one of them on my favorite list.
Immune vid, okay.
Yeah.
And why would that be the case?
Well, because immune vid, then again later when we're gonna edit this, yeah, we're gonna put in that. That's where the whole thing goes in. Okay, and then the whole story tell about it. Okay,
so already done.
Yes, that already done. Where we're gonna take, from which point we're gonna take it now?
We'll take it from the point where we are talking about, so I'm seeing it more from the angle of
it has to be your questions.
Yeah, it'll be more of a Q&A.
Yes.
Yeah, and then later we'll pop that up. So
because in this whatever conversation we have, it's just chopped, and that clip is inserted, which has the information about the immune vid. Okay. And we're gonna insert longevity and performance and all before that, because
a little bit of that
tomorrow.
That
No, that will go in if we're gonna make the last big video, because there will be small chops, right? But the last big video, I think longevity and performance has to go first, because when my favorites are not the favorites are the products. Okay, they are not the compounds, because I'm not talking about the compounds and the longevity and all, right? I'm talking about the... So sorry, I'm talking about the compounds, I'm talking about the products. And here talking about the products.
Yes.
And they are not 5, they're actually 6, because they might have all.
Correct. Now,
right?
if you're counting the...
It actually, it's more than 10, you know?
But the original is 5 though.
Yes, but see how I put a few of them in one, like the placenta different in one.
Then you have your NOP and then your...
Yes, but in fact it's more than 10, you know, and even the myopapestry different, and then the plugs are different forms, you know.
Yeah, you have the alpha and all of that, but we'll just talk in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, like for example now, if you're talking about...
So now we're talking about immune vid.
Yeah.
You have the list, yeah, so the immune vid. So now from here, you go with your questions.
Yeah. Okay, so initially we're talking about, his top 5 favorites, and immune vid was one of the products that came up. So again, for me, when he shared this product with me, I obviously did a bit of research and homework to sort of figure out, like, okay, you're recommending this, but I read something, and so the idea of today was more of just to sort of do a bit of a Q&A session to see whether or not my concerns are valid, number one, and two, whether there's an answer to it. So the first one that popped into my head was dosage. So immune vid essentially, the unique formulation of it is that it's a combination of 2 very strong vitamins, right, which we need, which is D3 and K2, right?
Yes.
So the idea would be, what would be the ideal dosage that an adult or a child would need of these 2 vitamins? Yeah, especially in the current times of COVID, where everyone's talking about boosting your immunity, take more vitamin C, la 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 la. So why K2, why D3?
Well, why K2 and D3, I've explained how this combination works specifically and what makes it so great. However, and the question that you have asked actually is an absolutely spot-on question. It's absolutely practical, and the answer is it's not going to be a specific number.
Okay.
It's definitely not going to be a specific number, because as it comes with everything else, you need to know where you stand now and what you want to reach. So if you want to know that, you need to check what is your serum level of the vitamin D.
Ah.
Yes.
Okay, and how would I be able to do that?
And that is done by doing the blood analysis.
Okay, so
it's just one of the parameters that your healthcare professional or advisor or any healthcare personnel that is working with you have to just stick that.
Okay, but would there be like but to add to that actually, which is a good point. Thank you for sharing that. It should be individual, because different bodies have different intake needs, right? in its sense? Right?
No, it's not that. Well, needs might be different depending on certain conditions. Yeah, and then especially when somebody is in a deficiency, tremendously deficient, or some high risks, and all, or maybe when it's included into some specific treatment protocol that I talked about also. Then, of course, the starting point will be very important. Yeah, what is the level of your serum vitamin D that you have at that particular moment, and then you know the preferred range that you want to be. It's between 100 to 140. You don't want to go more than that, because well, nothing bad is going to happen unless you're tremendously overdose, which, trust me, is not going to be the case.
And you would get, like, then it would be toxic, right, if you have an overdose of vitamins?
Yes, of course, yeah, but then it's not easy to achieve that. You know, who will just pop tablets in a huge amount unnecessarily, right? People will just take one salt gel. You know, then of course there are different grades, there are different doses, but these doses that Immunit is formulated, they are ideal, they are safest and the most efficient and effective. Why I say so? It's because you see, as the studies and surveys show, majority, a large percentage of population in all parts of the world, they are deficient in vitamin D. So you can, and the studies show that just by putting a regular individual, any just regular Joe, you know, some or Tom, Dick or Harry, on a 5,000 per day, even without checking their level, and almost a year down the road, they're not gonna, when you do their vitamin D level, they will not be in that toxic, or they will not have the toxicity, the level that has any hazards of toxicity. Okay, unlike.
Unless you down the whole bottle one shot.
Which of course definitely you will not. We're just talking about the regular supplementation with one salt gel. What we see in reality is that with that particular dose, within few months, and not that fast, don't think it's going to happen 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, even though there are specific formulas that you can calculate what is the dose of the supplement and what specific dose of the supplement, what increase of your serum level, how many units it will give. However, that is also not accurate. You should not take it that mechanistically and simplistically, because different absorption rate, different age, different genetic potential, different underlying conditions, different circumstances. Even not the 100% of the supplement that is taken orally is absorbed. And it depends on the time.
Yeah, which actually, interestingly enough, leads to the next question which I had, which is the best way to sort of take it? Like, do you think vitamins should be taken, especially K2 and D3, should it be taken orally, or should it be maybe injected, or should it be like through what do you call it, infusion?
All right. Okay. Well, vitamin D cannot be, to my knowledge, given through infusion because it's a fat-soluble vitamin. But like vitamin C and all the water solubles, they can be given in infusion. But vitamin D can be injected. However, and there are such forms of the vitamin D. However, I personally am not really a fan of that. And there are studies which show, well, actually that makes sense because it's more like a depot, and you inject a higher dose, and you do that relatively rare, and you expect that will create a plateau. Well, first of all, no matter how great the product might be formulated and how great that the platform, the carrier and the release system work, still you cannot guarantee an absolute stable plateau level throughout the entire period that you expect that depot, that injection will have. That's number one. Number two, so you will have initially the higher level and then a bit lower and then the fluctuation and all. That's not the optimal way. Okay. All right, you just want to be stable all the time.
Correct.
Okay, and you want that regular, proper, moderate dose supplementation. And it's not that difficult to swallow after breakfast because it's not supposed to be taken on an empty stomach because absorption won't be there. Yeah, it's a water-soluble substance. It's a steroid hormone, water-soluble steroid hormone. You know, so if you want a more or less efficient absorption in your digestive tract, then you have to take it after the meal, which contains fat.
Great. So again, which also, since you talk about food, you know, goes with the next question I had in mind, which was, are there any particular foods that might clash with my intake of, you know, like D3 and K2? Like, for example, you know, if let's say, I can't remember exact specifics, but the concept is that if you are taking, let's say, certain vitamin supplementations, and certain foods tend to sort of take those away from your body.
Yeah, that works with the zinc and copper, for instance. Not really much with vitamin D. Well, again, of course, the vitamin D is involved in so many functions, you know. But generally, if you take after meal with the regular meal, there's no specific limitations or something.
Okay, so it's quite safe, right?
Yeah, it's quite safe. And another thing is that even if for some reason people did not do the baseline vitamin D level and they are on the vitamin D supplementation, it's never late to go and do your actual level, serum level at that particular moment. And then, if say you see yourself that you are in a very good range, somewhere in a high range, more than 100, less than 140, okay, so you can actually adjust the dose. Well, if you don't want to adjust the dose and you love the product, well, you just adjust the frequency. You take it every alternate day, you take it once in 3 days. That's it, very simple, and a lot of things can be taken like that. You know, for instance, there's a substance called pregnenolone, which I would put on the last 5, the one that you might look into.
Yeah.
And well, the actual dose that I think I would have benefit from is much less than the dose that I have available.
So they always give you more than what you need.
Yeah, well, yeah, the capsules that I have in my possession now, that I purchased, you know, they have a higher dose, so I just take it randomly, put it this way. Just take it twice a week, thrice a week.
So you sort of space it out rather than daily. Got it.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm doing the same with my immunity as well.
Nice. So you're spacing it out. It's not like a daily.
Because I was on a daily supplementation, and then I've done my level, and I know specifically what my level is, and I'm absolutely happy with that. And I've changed to taking it every alternate day.
Nice.
And it works absolutely fine. I have very great stable level. I'm not overdose. Perhaps maybe one of the things that might happen when the level goes beyond 140, even before you might develop any abdominal discomfort a bit, something is a possible disturbance of sleep. Possible, but then again, it's not going to be something dramatic or something like that, something unmanageable. It's generally safe. So far, I haven't seen people who go with toxicity.
Great.
Yeah, well, I believe there are cases, yeah, but again, I haven't seen, because in our environment, I haven't seen, because I consider our environment very safe and very rational environment.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So, but then when you talk about vitamins also in general, right? Most people would think, okay, you know, taking through supplementation, isn't it better to just take it directly from the food, you know, that contains that particular vitamin?
Yes, of course, without doubt. If there is such a possibility, vitamin D3 and the K2 here is definitely not the case, and the value of this substance is the value of the steroid hormone, also known as vitamin D3, is very high, and chances of not getting that in a proper dose, and as the actual survey shows, a large amount of people are deficient or insufficient, and on the other hand, tremendous benefits from the supplementation, which does not apply to absolutely all vitamins. Yeah, and there's plenty of other vitamins which are readily available in food.
Lovely.
Yes, and that's a topic perhaps for the one of the most overrated or things that you can get otherwise elsewhere.
Understood.
Which are the multivitamins.
So stay tuned for that topic.
Yes, the multivitamins and antioxidants.
Lovely. Okay, moving on to the next product that you like on your top list. I realized that you shared it was plaques.
Yeah,
right?
plaques, absolutely.
So,
beautiful thing.
Beautiful. So what about plaques makes it so different and it's so essential for the body?
Well, first of all, as you all heard, it is a structural component. It's a structural compound. Okay, and most importantly is that everything has to be in a balance.
Correct.
Of course, everything has to be in a balance, and unfortunately, the hype about fat food or food that contains fats and that kind of demonization of the fats that happened since 1970s, and there was a major shift towards the carb-based and food with lots of sugars, and then the introduction of the fructose syrup, fructose and the corn syrup and that stuff. Actually, it essentially is added to almost all types of food now, and all these drinks and all, and generally the change of everything is so available now. And plus the fats became demonized, with all the cholesterol and the LDL hype, which it's becoming clear now that it's definitely not the case, and complete reduction or zero intake of fats and depleted cholesterol in meal, which doesn't do good. So all these extremes, everything, the truth.
It's about balance, right?
Yes, everything is about balance.
Yeah.
The best way, the optimum, and the truth is always somewhere in the middle. It's not some extremes, right, left. It's generally it's somewhere there.
Okay.
So first of all, it's a building block, and secondly, why I like plaques specifically? Well, because it is well researched, and particularly this product, out of all the essential phospholipids and the phosphatidylcholine, this is very well known and established and been used for a very, very long time, and very credible product. And then you have a variety of, not really large variety, but you have options.
Okay.
You have it in liquid form.
Okay.
That's what is known in the United States. It's done in compounding pharmacies, and they call it just a therapy with essential phospholipids. So if you will go online and you will Google scientific articles, just within the last few days you will find a lot of interesting data how that the infusion forms of the essential phospholipids, that the infusion form of the plaques, how it is used with multiple health benefits in different conditions. And that is also applicable for some critical conditions in medicine, for somebody with impending gangrenes,
the serious ones.
Yeah, so even in surgical practice, patients with liver failure, it's very well researched, and it's been used there. There's plenty of data on that. Not even talking about patients with the cardiovascular disease, with the atherosclerosis, the coronary artery disease, with the carotid artery thrombosis. So there's experimental data, there's clinical data, it's all out there. It's been for decades.
Wow.
And you have the oral form, and the oral form is in slightly different doses. All the conventional plaques, and then there's a 30% higher dose. And there's a combination with alpha tocopherol, with the vitamin A, which again, everything. Although I'm not really, I don't really fancy just taking or using antioxidants or vitamin A for a specific reasons, which I'm going to explain, separately. However, it doesn't mean that there is no benefit from that in specific condition or specific circumstances. So here you have a product which sort of suits for different conditions. And last but not the least is that sometimes there are situations when you have to take a high dose. You have to take it to a well-conditioned, or you have a specific reason for that. Even if you are a heavy training athlete, for the matter of fact, yes, it also will help you. And or if you have a specific condition, yes. However, if you are on a specific protocol, if you are taking any other compounds or any other treatments that might alter your metabolism and might create certain risks, so you sort of have to compensate that, and that happens with performance enhancement. Yeah, so when you are on different performance enhancements protocols, you have to be very careful with your phospholipid profile, with your LDL, with your HDL. So such supplementation like drugs, you might need a higher requirement. You might have a higher requirement for that. And yeah, same goes for omega-3. Also in those conditions, sometimes it's not 1 gram or not 500 mg of combined DHA and EPA anymore. It's 2,000, 3,000.
Up the dosage.
Because you have to you have to think of the final outcome of your metabolism. You have to think of the de novo LDL production. So if you have deranged metabolism because due to various reasons, so performance enhancement drugs and all, you have to pay a lot of attention to that. Yeah, because your LDL levels may go sky high, your HDL will crash. So you gotta keep that in balance. So these are the supplements, and then also there's certain substances which are hepatotoxic, right? They are not really great for liver. You gotta protect that. Yeah, and essential phospholipids, phosphatidylcholine alkalides, about 70% of the liver that should consist of that.
Okay.
And of course, there's other things that you need to implement. That's why you need to be in proper hands. You gotta
randomly do stuff.
Absolutely, you cannot. First of all, what you can do and you should not do is just randomly do stuff to your body. Secondly, what you should not do is watch YouTube and go apply that stuff onto yourself.
Correct.
Next thing, what you should not do, you should not join the Facebook group with various Facebook groups that discuss different healthcare topics and just listen to advices from people.
Like random people.
Well, they might not be random, and they might be quite well informed, but they might have their own specific agenda behind that, So if you are lucky and you're in good hands, fantastic, great. I mean, you're lucky. Do we have such examples? Well, of course, plenty. There's plenty of genuine people out there, who are doing a great job. But there's plenty of people who are genuine people not doing a great job, just simply because they don't know what they're doing completely. Yeah, that can be a case, and there are people who are not so genuine, but they know what they're doing. There can be people who are not so genuine and they don't know completely what they're doing. That, of course, is the most dangerous.
Correct. It's like a quadrant,
Right.
In the know, but with agenda, or in not the know with no agenda.
Right.
So it's in the quadrant. So it goes to my next question, which would be like for.
Yes. So that's what it was meant for. Actually, for different heart conditions and all. Not only for that. Apart from that, it's gives you a better clarity of thoughts, better clarity of mind, because it's a donor of the choline group, which is a part of the acetylcholine. It's one of the neuromediators, one of the main neuromediators in our brain.
Okay.
And of course, benefits for liver. So it's a very holistic, benefits.
Okay.
And it is definitely great for longevity. It's an essential component in longevity program. But those who are involved in a high physical activity, they want to get better performance, definitely, yes, they will benefit from that as well.
Okay, so how does plugs help reduce the LDL and increase the HDL?
Well, there's the entire mechanism of action behind that, you know. One of the mechanisms of action is involving, it influences a specific enzyme, HMG coacetyl A, in the liver, and that enzyme is involved in the biochemical processes of formation, either the HDL or the LDL. So in the end, it will modulate the biochemical process in such a way that there is a less de novo, means less new LDL molecule produced, but higher HDL production.
Nice. Okay. So can people be like allergic to plugs? Is there such a thing?
Well, people can be allergic to anything. It's not something that frequently observed, but yeah, there's always a possibility of somebody being allergic to something.
Yeah.
And well, if such unfortunate things happen, but to plugs,
not so high?
well, yeah, not really. Yeah, not really high the occurrence, because the molecule itself is essential, you know, unless you have some severe condition, whatever, you are just unlucky, you're allergic to some, specifically to some component, you know, some trace compound that is present there. Well, there's always a possibility, but nothing that been heard of much or regularly.
Okay. So what would be, because you mentioned that there's 3 ways, right, of how plugs can be administered to the body, you know, so what do you think would be?
No, what I meant is that there are different doses, and there are different, some doses less, some doses about 30% more. So, and especially it's very important for those who need a higher dose, might even go beyond that, 2 or 3 soft gels per day, or patients who might benefit from a combination of essential phospholipids of the phosphatidylcholine with alpha-tocopherol, that's
and that's more of an infusion?
No, it's just an oral supplement. Yeah, it's just an oral supplement.
So which would be better actually in terms of administration? Would oral supplement be better or infusion?
No, well, there's no such thing. I don't think that it would be a fair judgment if I would say something like that. It all depends on the circumstances. It all depends on the case. And everything has its own indications. Definitely, you cannot generalize and just put some blanket rule on plugs and essential phospholipids.
Doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now moving on to the third one that you really like, which is the SPE, right? Yeah.
Well, I would more refer to this as a placental therapy rather than talking about the SPE. So, as long as it has the component inside, I find that very interesting and very beneficial for different cases in life, and including my personal experience.
Okay, please share more on that actually. How did that?
For me and for those who I know and people in my family and some elder individuals, the people who had what I mentioned, a story about the sciatica and the lower back pain that happened in one of senior citizens in our big family, and this was quite a pretty fast, quick solution.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, when it was a case of a lower back pain, the neuralgia, you know, because placenta has got wonderful healing properties. It's got very potent anti-inflammatory properties. It has the potential to regenerate tissue, you know. It's just because of the compounds, the growth factors, not the growth hormones. Yes, the growth factors that are present there, and there's a variety of growth factors depending on their origin. However, for instance, vascular endothelial growth factor or platelet-derived growth factor. But if the name says platelet-derived growth factor, it doesn't mean that it can be found only there. Yeah, well, perhaps it's historically the people who first isolated it. Well, I don't know that particular story, but just as a possibility. right? That's why they give that particular name, or because the large amount of that particular biologically active substance is present or can be derived from the platelets. Okay? Well, perhaps that's a name. That's why the name is coming from platelet-derived growth factor. But placenta itself, it contains a number of growth factors, including the vascular endothelial growth factor, including the so-called placental growth factor, which is unique for placenta, but also it contains the platelet-derived growth factors and other types of the growth factors, simply because placenta is not the organ which has one type of the cells, right? There's a huge amount of different types of the cells there. And it is an organ that is responsible for the nutrition and the growth and detoxification in the same time, and the oxygen supply and the nutrient supply and the removal of wastage from the growing, extremely rapidly growing organism. Because the way the speed of development and growth during the intrauterine period is incomparably higher to any other periods in our life. You know, we never grow and develop that fast as any animal, for the matter of fact. Yeah, so placenta contains those nutrients that has been used historically for thousands of years in different forms, whether it's a dried, lyophilized, and for the matter of fact, not only by humans, but placenta phagy is a phenomenon, it's a biological phenomenon. It is quite widely present in the animal kingdom as well. There's plenty of animals who consume their placenta in the postpartum period, and since there is such a fact, it shows that it has the biological background, you know, behind it. It's on a genetic level, it's on the level of the instinct. It's not that just humans have made up, right? So it has certain predisposition for that, even in other species. Yeah. So now, of course, we do not deal with placenta unless it's specific ethnical groups, some geographical locations, and even in some countries, if it's your placenta, you can prepare that. In the United States, actually, can be prepared and encapsulated into the end product, stored for future consumption during some specific period of time.
Because at the end of the day, it is part of, you know...
Right. Yeah, but what we are talking about here is totally already not that. We're talking about, it's not even a hi-fi, it's a high-end extraction process, it's a pharmaceutical grade manufacturing, and even using the term placenta supplement is not really right. It's the nutrients of placenta, or the compounds that are present in placenta. They go through a specific extraction, and after that they identified or isolated for different purposes. They use that in wound care, in burn units, including the placental growth factors, or different products which are prepared from placenta itself, which can be applied on the wound surface or the ulcer topically to cover that surface and then promote. It's the mechanical treatment, or you cover it mechanically, you prevent the loss of the electrolytes and plasma from that open surface, and in the same time you promote the healing, the regeneration, the granulation and the epithelialization of that surface.
So it's a multi-purpose?
Multi-purpose. There's data. It has been used in ophthalmology, in eye surgery, and actually it was first described by Professor Filatov. It's more than 100 years ago now. And even if we look into the recent studies and books, which some of them are coming from Japan. There's a wonderful book which is released in Japan, written by a Japanese eye surgeon, describing the use of placenta as the transplants, the corneal transplants, and all for surgical, microsurgical repair of the eye. Damages which are caused by including the chemical damages.
Wow.
Yeah, the chemical burns to the eye also.
A lot of benefits.
Definitely. And of course, different countries has got different rules. Different countries has got different regulations. In some countries, the manufacturing is possible. In some countries, you can apply. In some countries, you can't. Well, like everything. But we have fantastic data from India and South Korea and all that. There's plenty of other countries which are doing great research in Europe. There's wonderful data from Italy and all other countries. So it is a very well known, very established, has been used tremendous amount of time for a very long duration in the history of medicine and medicinal use of various preparations and all, and it definitely has a place, a role. It is very much crystallized in modern medicine. Yeah, and even if you just extrapolate that all into the anti-aging or the aesthetics, do you know what they have now? They have different products, and I think we should even leave the link to that, or maybe we can even put a little video that will show how these products can be used as a home use. Yes, okay. Just for the facial rejuvenation, for the anti-aging purposes, when you use the actual vial with the liquid form, and then you have this stempler.
Just
yes, self doing that at home.
DIY.
DIY.
Nice.
And it's not only for facial rejuvenation. People might think for ladies only, well, I think it's for all genders.
Yeah.
But not only for that, it's also for the hair growth, for the beard.
Yeah, the whole range.
There's for the eyelashes, the eyebrows, sorry. You know, there's so many different indications for that, so many different applications, which are very simple, very useful, very safe. You can use it at home. And you have a well-researched product from the realm of high-end medicine. You know, it's a real regenerative medicine, but that product has found itself and its application, wide application, in just daily use and daily maintenance of your youthfulness and your skin glow, and also your mood, and also pain management, and also ability to recover from traumas or injuries or different diseases. Generally, it's an enhancement therapy.
Nice, and it's very versatile as well. You know,
it's very versatile.
It can fit.
Yeah, it's very versatile, and it's in so many forms, even as an oral supplement.
But which would be more practical, you would say, like, because I think a lot of people have this perception that when it goes through some kind of processing, like for example, when it becomes into capsules and all that, when there's a bit of a heat treatment involved, you might actually kill a lot of live active components in this compound.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's why there are different technological methods. Heating or the lyophilization when something is just dried out, or the different types of the extraction. And hence, on the other side of the funnel, we have different products, either in a liquid form, and as you know, we have the NOPs, a smaller molecule, which is chopped down to the smaller size, high absorption, topically can be used, even can be used it is easily absorbed through the wound surface.
Nice.
With any scratch or something, it's definitely it will be easier to absorb any superficial injury on some sensitive parts of the body, the face, where you really want to heal that nice and fast. Even just the topical application.
Yeah. And the results are there, right?
You should go and check out the website and the link that we're going to put here and see some pictures that happen not only to old individuals, to young individuals after motor vehicle injuries, after some wounds on the face, and how that progressed and how fast they healed without any septic complication, without any much inflammation, without scar.
Nice.
So, a very versatile, not just a product, a very versatile, it's like a dimension on its own, okay? Because it has so many applications, it has so many results, and so many great results. There's so many ways how in the end we can benefit from that. So definitely there's something for everyone. But if you just want to talk about the SPE and the similar combination of the supplement, it's not only that, it has the coenzyme Q10, it has the resveratrol, and those molecules I definitely include in those which are essential either for longevity or essential for performance, or for both. Yeah, for both.
Wow.
And each of that compounds has a reason, has a story behind it, which we're gonna talk separately in the best 5 for longevity and the best 5 for performance.
Yeah, lovely. Now moving on to the next product in your list is the MCE Evolution. Right? So again, when you talk about this, what is actually so unique about this formulation?
It is somewhat. It has certain parallels with the PE, but it has certain core differences. And the core difference that it does not have the nutrients or any compounds extracted from placenta. However, it does compensate with other origins, specifically the marine, the fish derived, and the krill derived compounds. And that itself has huge benefits due to various reasons. On the one hand, it's the fatty acids, the omega-3 fatty acids. But on the other hand, it is also the building blocks for the synthesis of the collagen. Okay? So, hence the categories of people who might benefit, it varies from care and support to the musculoskeletal apparatus, to your bones, joints, the muscle tissue, to skin and to cardiovascular support.
Wow.
So, and again, because there are other things, including the ubiquinol, including the resveratrol, including the alpha-lipoic acid. So it makes it a very holistic health supplement.
Nice.
That hardly has any limitations, frankly speaking. Hardly has any limitations. And I'm talking about all sorts of limitations. For instance, some people might say that I do not consume products of some religious or cultural or ethnical reasons for that, but MCE is more unique, so there's also things that or ingredients that some people might find not suitable for them are already not there, but there's plenty other beneficial ingredients and all, which make it really very universal.
Yeah.
It makes it very, very universal because practically zero side effects or zero precautions or risks with absolute benefits, and very, very minor, some possible limitations. Who can take it? I can't even figure out who.
But it's good because I think most people would realize that it's marine extracts. So
Yes.
I think they're more open to it. Like, I understand that even my friends who are vegetarian can take marine extracts.
Right.
So they can take seafood and the work. So I think cod liver oil, fish oil. So I think this is a really versatile, and I think now I know why it's in your box, of top 5s, because again, the versatility, it's universally, you can take it because of all the functions that you mentioned.
Well, in my box, because it is unique, as well as all other products. It serves multiple purposes.
Lovely.
Okay. This particular product is on my list because it includes different compounds which I consider very important and essential for different aspects or different situations in life.
Yeah.
Okay. And they are in a sufficient dose. They are not underdosed. Okay, because one of the main problems of supplements that have many ingredients is that, you know, when people enter the store or just shop online and they look at a long list of, like a scroll,
yes,
you know, of ingredients,
it's
and
so confusing.
And you have a tiny pill or tiny capsule. And when you actually break down and you look at the amount of every ingredient there, well, it's tremendously underdosed. And then, you know what's the worst thing? Is that you might think, okay, if I take twice, double, triple, 4, 5 pills or capsules, I can compensate, but there will be some ingredients that are in the dose that will not allow you to do that.
Because it's a combination.
Yeah.
Okay.
There will be some ingredients that you will think, oh my god, but then I will get this particular ingredient 5 times more. No.
Which I don't need.
Definitely it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
You know, that's a big problem, and that's a huge limitation.
Of course.
It's a huge limit because it's just a loss of reason to take that. But here it's not many, it's not 100, it's say 4, 5 or 6, but important essential compounds, and in a right dose.
Which is the key part, right? Because at the end of the day, like what we were discussing earlier, it's not about the quantity per se, it's about the quality of it. You know?
Right.
Yeah, and again, what we're paying for, I think, at the end of the day, as consumers, is we want proper formulations with proper ratios already decided based on research, as opposed to just, you know, the company saying, oh, I think I want to put, you know, A this, B that, C this, and then, you know, you sort of mumbo jumbo the whole thing together, and then you end up taking the supplements and you're wondering, why am I not getting the results that I'm supposed to be seeing? You know, I'm supposed to have, you know, maybe less migraine, I'm supposed to have better eyesight, you know, but none of these things, or more energy, but I'm not getting any of these things. Yeah.
And the formulation is done very wisely. I'll give you a scenario, an example. For instance, when we're talking about omega-3 and coenzyme Q10, ubiquinol, you know, a regular supplementation, we're talking about a specific dose. For instance, which is quite close to reality, is 100 microgram for ubiquinol and say 1,000 for EPA, for omega-3s. And then the next paragraph would say that, however, the patients with underlying heart disease or chronic or ischemic heart disease, chronic heart condition, patients with dyslipidemia, and so on and so forth, they would benefit from 200 even, but the best effects or the best performance is even observed with a 300 of the ubiquinol, coenzyme Q10. That's the dose for patients with the cardiomyopathy, for instance. Yeah. But in the same time, the same patient will have the deranged lipids, and his recommended intake of the combined EPA and DHA would go up from 1,000 to 2,000 and 3,000. So here, just by taking 2 soft gels or 3 soft gels, you actually, it is specifically formulated, you know, so that the most frequent conditions, the most frequent scenarios that might and do happen in reality, when people may need a higher dose of this and that specific compound, you can get it all from one supplement, just increasing the dose of that.
Yeah, and so it's really good, I would say, for those who don't want to, you know, like spend too much on, you know, the whole range of supplements, you know, just to buy one of each things. That's why we're talking about the combinations,
yes,
right?
It's already a few of them.
Yeah, and also to make sure that you know, not just about the budget, but also about, you know, some people have this issue. I wouldn't call it a phobia, but an issue of taking too many tablets, in their meals. Like, if you have
convenience,
30,
right.
It'll be so
it's just
much
the convenience. It's
Correct.
just the convenience.
Yeah.
And even if you look at the way how it is packed, every 10 are packed separately.
Blister packed, right?
And blistered, and with the temperature, sort of a bit of protection. It's not gonna melt. It's not gonna spoil. If you're traveling or going somewhere, you don't have to carry the whole bags and boxes. You just take one blister. If you're going for a week, one blister of 10 is definitely enough.
Nice.
So it's just
very practical.
Very easy and practical.
Nice. Okay, and moving on to the last item on your list, which is Biohack, right? Which I think personally you have an interest in because since you've gone into the whole idea of body sculpting and weight training and all of that, you have taken a lot of it, I believe. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about because in particular, I think about Biohack, you mentioned briefly the last one about this thing called BCAA.
Well, it doesn't have the BCAAs because, not to say that it's controversial, there are different opinions on the BCAAs. I can't say that they're absolutely safe and needed and necessary for everyone. There's some issues with the effect that they cause on the liver and the metabolism that is happening in the liver, which is not that great in terms of the lipids, also synthesis and all. And there are some controversies regarding this. So if we talk just about the powder form, it's just a high quality whey protein and with other trace elements and all the micronutrients, and it's just great quality and well formulated. But what mostly fascinates me, and what I have personally tried in the past, was the liquid form, the follistatin. And I've done that when I was at maybe not the worst peak of my body weight, but it was pretty high on fat. And it gave me a fantastic kickstart because that time I was very much involved in playing squash.
I recall, yeah.
Yes, I was playing squash heavily at that time. And well, you play best of 5, then you play another best of 3, and then you're pretty tired, then you rest, maybe another best of 3, one more best of 5. Pretty much that's it, right? And well, you run, of course, and